Let's discuss this more with our guests. We have Mohamad Elmasry, he's professor at the Doha Institute for Graduate Studies and a political analyst. He joins us in the studio in Doha. And we have Niloufar Afridi Kazi, a public policy specialist in Pakistan. She joins us live from Islamabad. Good to see you both. Mohamad, if I could start with you. The signals we are getting from Islamabad suggest that both sides are poised to head towards these talks. But the threats and accusations being thrown around by both sides, and of course the seizing of that Iranian cargo ship yesterday, highlight how tense things are between both sides. What's your sense of where we are at?
It's very precarious right now. I think there was a real opportunity a few days ago when Trump asked the Iranians to open the Strait up, and they responded positively. They opened the Strait up. They tweeted that they had basically stepped down the escalation ladder. They responded favorably to Trump's request. It was at that moment that the U.S. had an opportunity to also step down the escalation ladder. And instead, Trump kind of did the opposite. He used it as an opportunity to declare victory and show.
Why do you think he did that?
I think he wanted to show the American people that he had won and that he had forced an Iranian surrender. And that was a really big miscalculation. I don't think he read the Iranians correctly at that moment. And so here we are. It's very precarious. We're still not 100% certain if the Iranians are gonna show up in Pakistan. I think they probably will, but I think the negotiations are going to be more difficult now that this has all happened over the last few days.
If both sides do show up in Pakistan, should we take that as a sign that neither side actually really wants this war to resume?
Look, I don't think either side has an appetite for more war. I think they will fight if they have to, but both sides would like to take the first off-ramp. The problem here is that the United States, I think, has fundamentally miscalculated and misread this entire situation from the beginning, really, and we could go back. And I think Trump believes that he has more leverage than he actually does. And so now both sides are going to ultimately sort of dig their heels in. It's going to be a difficult negotiation. But to answer your question, I don't think either side wants to go back to war.
Niloufar, how optimistic are you that we will see both sides in Islamabad in the next few days? And what has the role of Pakistan been in getting us to this point?
Thank you for having me. I think everyone in Pakistan, and particularly in Islamabad, are waiting for both of them to arrive. We completely understand the reservations of the Iranis, especially the provocative actions that the Americans just on the eve of the second round of talks. But the mood in Islamabad is that both will be arriving, and we are in lockdown mode, and the expectation of everyone in Islamabad and all those who are analyzing the situation second by second are in a state of readiness for a second round of discussions. Peace talks perhaps is, like a little, like that comes later. But just to move the dialogue process between these two countries, and Pakistan is working 24/7, if 25/7, to try and get this process moving. So there is a sense of hope. An expectation that by tonight and tomorrow, we will be moving in a slight direction of positiveness.
Mohamad, so as we heard there from Niloufar, Pakistan putting 25/7 into the efforts when it comes to these talks. How fundamental is their role here in bringing the two sides to this point?
Super important. I think Pakistan in many ways is the perfect place. They're the perfect mediator because they've long had good relations with the Iranians, and they have a good relationship with the United States. So there's trust there. And a basic problem here between the U.S. and Iran is the lack of trust. As you all have been covering for weeks, months now, there's just a fundamental lack of trust. And so you need a mediator that has the ear or ears, as it were, of both sides. And I think Pakistan has that.
Mohammed, there's been quite a bit of mixed messaging coming out of Tehran to the extent that some people are questioning whether it is the supreme leader who is in control or whether it is the Islamic Revolutionary Guard making the key decisions. Why does that distinction matter right now?
It's really important. So first of all, to answer the first part of the question, I think that the IRGC has more control right now during wartime. And the reason why that is important is that it basically lends itself to a more kind of hardened position. And I think it's very important that the United States understand that the Iranians had those 10 points, that list of 10 demands, and I think they're going to stick to their guns. I think they will be willing to compromise on some of them. 4 of those 10 demands are economy related, they're money related. And I don't think that the Iranians are going to surrender all of them. They may be willing to compromise on a couple of them, but unless the Americans understand that the new faces of the Iranian regime have hardened their position and believe that they are in a position of strategic leverage and that they are perfectly willing to go back to war if they have to, I think it'll be a much more difficult negotiation if the U.S. doesn't understand those things.
And Nilüfer, if I could ask you the final question, to what extent does this mixed messaging coming from Iran highlight how much pressure Iran is under right now?
I think it's also important not to only talk about the so-called reference to the mixed messaging from Iran. I mean, in every country you have different centers of power. We have, over the last 6 weeks, seen that the United States themselves not necessarily reflecting the public opinion or the power centers that influence foreign policy in America. I mean, the elephant in the room, which is very visible to everyone, Israel and its influence on decision making, the undermining of the entire process of discussion, peace talks, eventual sustainable peace, which is what Iran also seeks. Is it coming from America or is it coming from a third party? So I think it's very important when we talk about power centers in Iran that influence decision making, at least in Iran, in all the centers of influence towards foreign and domestic policy, it is in the interest of Iran and Iranians. One can't quite say that with the Americans and those that are influencing decisions in America.
Interesting point. Okay, thank you to both our guests, Nilüfer Afid-Kazi, Public Policy Specialist in Pakistan, and Mohamad Elmasry from the Doha Institute for Graduate Studies.